Hello and welcome to Tomorrow is Yesterday, the show where we review every episode of Star Trek in production order. My name is Brandon Couch, and with me, as always, David Moss. Introduce yourself, David.
Hello, I am King Candy from the game Candyland, and I would like for you to start introducing me as that.
Sure. And my co-host, King Candy from Candyland.
Uh,
We're gonna get sued. Someone owns that game. Hasbro might sue us.
I was gonna say Hasbro. Have you seen any good shows or movies lately?
um, lately I've been watching Gargoyles. It's really good. I just finished season 1, which is 13 episodes.
Really?
Season 2 is like 50 something episodes, so I'm gonna have to gear up for that.
Wow, 50 episodes.
Yeah, it's good, and it has a lot of Star Trek people in it. It has Jonathan Frakes and Marina Sirtis, and Michael Dorn was in the last episode I watched.
I so I've been getting emails from Reading Rainbow. It's a no some group in California that's wanting people to read or something. And it's LeVar Burton is the one, main person advertising it. And they're giving away shirts, or if you donate so much money, they're giving away shirts and it says, I will refrain from the cuss word, but it says, I want you to read effing books or more effing books. And then it has like it says that and it has like a book and everything. And yeah, it's funny. I don't know what that had to do with anything, but just talking about actors from Star Trek and others non-Star Trek
Nice.
stuff. Did you see Patrick Stewart is possibly going to be in Deadpool coming out in July?
No, I haven't seen that. I haven't watched any of the trailers or anything for Deadpool.
Are you going to see Deadpool?
I'll see it eventually.
You can't say eventually. You have to see it.
I would have to drive like a town over to go to a movie theater to see it.
I mean, you could drive a couple towns over and come see it with me, and I'll buy your ticket. What? How many towns over is that? Actually,
That's like a lot of towns over, David.
no, 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 no. Only two. Only two.
Sure.
It's just they're very spaced out. Um,
Before we get into this episode, we want to remind you that you can find us at Tomorrow Trek Pod on TikTok.
TikTok.
Tomorrow is Yesterday, first aired on January 26, 1967, was written by D.C. Fontana, who we last mentioned for writing the teleplay for Charlie X.
So I watched this. I'm gonna say it now. I like this episode.
Okay.
I had one issue with the episode. I'll get into that later because you'll
Okay.
bring it up. You'll
It's a
bring
good
up the issue.
episode.
And I was like, this is a really good episode. And I actually went and I was watching the whole thing. And I was like, DC Fontana wrote this, and she's supposed to be like the best writer of Star Trek.
Like legendary Star Trek writer, like created most of what we love about Vulcans.
Right. So I'm like, that's why this is a good episode. And I was like, well, is this the first one that she's written that I've seen? Like in this playthrough? And I went back and I looked, and she wrote Charlie X. And I was like, that is terrible. Why would she do that?
Okay, so honestly, I thought this was the first one too until I looked it up and found Charlie X. So the thing about Charlie X is she wrote the teleplay, which means she wrote the script, but like it wasn't originally hers. It was like the story was by someone else. Roddenberry's idea, Roddenberry wrote like basically the idea for the story of Charlie X, and then DC Fontana wrote the actual script based on Roddenberry's story. So like Charlie X is not entirely on DC Fontana.
Okay. Okay. Because Charlie X is terrible.
It is directed by Michael O'Herlihy. And let's get into the cast. We have Roger Perry as Captain John Christopher, DeForest Kelley as Dr. Leonard McCoy, who we last saw on The Alternative Factor, Hal Lynch as Air Police Sergeant, Richard Merrifield as Technician Webb, John Winston as Transporter Chief, Ed Peck as Lieutenant Colonel Fellini, James Doohan as Lieutenant Commander Scott, who we last saw in Arena, George Takei as Lieutenant Sulu, who we also last saw in Arena, Nichelle Nichols as Lieutenant Uhura, who we last saw in The Alternative Factor, Mark Dempsey as Air Force Captain, Jim Spencer as Air Policeman, and Sherry Townsend as Crewwoman. Alright, now before we start the episode, this episode actually has a connection with The Naked Time. You remember how at the end of The Naked Time, they went back in time 3 days?
Yes.
So what was actually supposed to originally happen is at the end of that episode, they were supposed to go back in time to the 60s, and then the next episode was supposed to be this episode.
Really?
Yeah, which would have been way cooler.
Yeah. But at the time they hadn't done a two-part episode, right? I guess Menagerie,
Uh,
Menagerie Part 1 and Part 2.
well, the Naked Time was before that, though, so yeah, when this was written, they'd never done a two-part episode yet.
Right.
But yeah, that would have been like a really cool idea, though, but they wanted to keep everything episodic, so I guess they like broke them up and spaced them apart like that.
Hmm.
But yeah, going back to the 60s would have been like a cool way to a cool cliffhanger to end on for The Naked Time.
Right. Uh,
And had that happened, like Janice Rand probably would have been in this one because she was
yeah.
still around in The Naked Time.
Because you only see one. No, you don't even see any yeoman, do you?
I mean, probably in the background at some point.
Did you know DC Fontana actually wrote The Naked Now, the Next Generation episode of
Interesting.
Naked Time?
Yeah, that one wasn't good.
And she wrote Farpoint.
Well, yeah, I knew she wrote Farpoint.
Right. So she's the one that gave us Q.
I actually like remember reading that like Q was like something added very late into that script. I think that was Roddenberry's idea.
I mean, you can tell like the whole thing could have happened without Q.
Oh yeah,
But I mean, I'm glad Q happened.
yeah.
But I feel like Q could have been introduced honestly in that episode where well no, because then you wouldn't have had the episode where he tried to get Riker to be a Q.
Honestly, you don't need that episode.
Hmm. But then how are you gonna get old Wesley? Old or man Wesley?
The way that we did, that me and you did, we waited till Wesley grew up and he was in Picard season 2.
Hmm. I mean he looks way different than Wesley as a man in that episode.
Exactly.
Hmm.
But no, I like how they bookended that show with Q. You got Q in episode 1, you got Q in the last episode.
Yeah,
Ties it all
yeah.
together. Alright, let's get into Tomorrow is Yesterday. Our namesake. We didn't even mention that. We got to our namesake.
Well, I guess we're done then.
Nope.
I'm
We are not
joking.
done.
We're just getting started.
We open with a shot of some fighter jets on an Air Force base and cut to a radar technician who addresses his captain. Captain, what is it, Webb? A blip, sir, just came on the screen. How do you read it? Aircraft of some sort. By the size of it and the speed, it's not one of ours, sir. It doesn't even read like anything I've ever seen. What was the approach? None, sir. It was just there, like it fell out of the sky or something. Current position? Directly over the Omaha installation, sir. Holding there. Watch the scope, Webb. Air Defense will want to send somebody up for a closer look. We may have a real UFO on our hands. We hear alarms sounding off, we see jets being scrambled, and cut to a shot of the Enterprise flying across a clear blue sky.
Okay, so before they showed it, did they show the Enterprise in the teaser?
Yeah, at the very end, that we see the Enterprise list just flying across the sky.
Okay, so it was a very long time before they actually showed the Enterprise. I mean, not a very long time, but it's a very long teaser before they actually showed the Enterprise. And I was like, wait, is this an Elvis movie or is this Star Trek? Because, like, especially those Elvis movies where he's in the army always start like that. And I was like, I was like, wait, I don't think I clicked on the right thing. Yeah, what? No, I think Paramount's messing up. and then they show the Enterprise.
See, I like that. Like, say you're in the '60s, you're watching you're just turn on TV, you don't know what you're watching because you don't have like this streaming or guides or what we have now, and you just turn on the TV.
Right.
You see the beginning. It's like, oh, it's one of the billion military shows on the air, and then you see the Enterprise. Like that. That's a good teaser. Like throws you off for a second. Oh, it's a military show dealing with UFOs. Oh, nope, it's Star Trek.
Like honestly, like I loved the teaser. Like I loved it. It was different. It
Yeah,
was
it was different. It
wonderful.
was good.
And I think Voyager did a few teasers like this too.
Um, yeah, I think so.
Um, and I think Enterprise kind of did it with their Mirror Universe one, where it was all
Well, yeah,
completely
Enterprise.
different.
The
And
teaser is like a scene out of First Contact, but then they have like a plot twist.
yeah, yeah. Mm. But I liked it. It was good.
Yeah. The first time I saw that episode, I was watching on TV. I thought that's what was happening too. I thought like it was a Star Trek Enterprise marathon, and then they just like played. We're doing First Contact.
And then all of a sudden the Vulcan gets shot.
Yeah.
You're like, what? What? Uh,
Captain's log, stardate 3113.2. We were en route to Starbase 9 for resupply when a black star of high gravitational attraction began to drag us toward it. It required all warp power in reverse to pull us away from the star. But like snapping a rubber band, the breakaway sent us plunging through space, out of control, to stop here, wherever we are.
On the bridge, lights are off. Everyone's been knocked to the floor. Spock says that they're on impulse power. Everything's out except for secondary systems. Kirk asks about auxiliary power. Spock says if Scotty's still alive, auxiliary should be on shortly. Kirk helps her off the floor, and the lights come on. Spock's like, so Scotty is still alive. Kirk goes to Leslie's station and addresses the crew. This is the captain. Damage control parties on all decks check in. All departments tie in with the record computer. Report casualties and operational readiness to the first officer. Kirk out. Kirk tells Uhura to contact Starfleet Control and tell them about the Black Star by Starbase 9. Spock reports that all crew injuries are minor, the warp engines aren't operational, and Scotty overrode the helm controls and is holding us in orbit. Kirk asks where they're orbiting, and Spock answers Earth. They were headed in this direction, and apparently the star threw them the rest of the way. Kirk says to turn the screen on, and we see Earth. Spock says they're too low in the atmosphere, so Kirk tells Sulu to give us some altitude. Sulu says okay, but she's a bit sluggish. Uhura says there's nothing but static on Starfleet channels. She's picking up another frequency, but it's not Starfleet. Kirk says to play it, and we hear a news report saying, "This is the 5:30 news summary. Cape Kennedy. The first manned moonshot is scheduled for Wednesday, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. All three astronauts who are to make this historic." Kirk has her cut it off. Manned moonshot. That was in the late 1960s. Apparently, Captain. So are we.
they I was gonna say, did they do the when was the moon landing? Like 69?
69.
When did Star Trek come out? Like 66?
So this
No.
episode came out in 67. This episode was written in 66. So this was before the moon landing.
Okay. So that's why they didn't know the three people that were doing it yet. That's why he cut them off.
Yeah. So, according to this episode, the moon launch happened at 6 a.m. on a Wednesday in the late 1960s. The Apollo 11 actually happened at 9:32 a.m. on Wednesday, July 16th, 1969. That was an incredibly accurate prediction. Like, they just got the time wrong.
Dang, dude. Dang. If they would have predicted the people too, like Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldridge, and I don't know the other one,
I don't know either.
Alan Rickman.
Alright. Then Spock explains that the whiplash from the star threw them into a time warp. Uhura picks up a grounded air transmission, and Spock says that scanners are picking up an aircraft approaching. Stopping here, I think it's a fun coincidence that Starbase 9 has a black star near it causing problems, and Deep Space Nine has a wormhole near it causing problems.
Um,
That's a fun coincidence. We see a pilot in a fighter jet. Blue Jay, this is Blackjack. We're tracking you and the UFO. The pilot says he has it on his screen and is following it. Cut to the bridge. Kirk tells Sulu to go faster. Sulu says the Enterprise is still slow to respond. Back to the pilot, he reports the UFO is picking up and climbing. Whatever this is, it's big. 2 cylindrical projections on top, 1 below. Purpose undetermined. Back on the bridge, the crew is listening to the pilot getting his orders to force the UFO to land. Spock says that the craft is an interceptor armed with missiles and possibly nuclear warheads, and if they get hit with one, they'll be damaged beyond repair. Kirk tells Scotty to activate the tractor beam and lock onto the jet. Spock points out that the craft might be too fragile to take the tractor beam. We see the jet get hit with the tractor beam. Spock says the jet is breaking apart, and Kirk orders the transporter room to beam the pilot aboard.
I find it stupid, and it'll come back. That they just like let go of the ship and just let it be destroyed, or the airplane. Because when they did that, I was like, man, that's kind of stupid of them. And it'll come back to that.
Let's hope they dropped it over somewhere unpopulated. Catch at the transporter room, the pilot is beamed aboard. Kirk welcomes him to the Enterprise. At first, the pilot's surprised that Kirk is speaking English. Then he goes full POW. Captain John Christopher, United States Air Force, serial number 4857932.
Yeah.
Kirk says, relax, we come in peace, and introduces himself. Christopher asks who, what, when, where, why, and how. Kirk apologizes for bringing him to the ship like that. He didn't know that his jet couldn't stand up to the tractor beam. Kirk accuses him of double talk and demands to know who Kirk is. Kirk says, we'll tell you what we decided to tell you in a minute. Until then, be our guest.
Kirk was kind of rude there.
I mean, he was nice up until that point. The guy was just asking too many questions. Kirk gets a call from Spock. Spock tells him that the aircraft has completely broken apart and asks if he can turn off the tractor beam. Kirk says, yes, we've got the pilot and we're on our way up. I like the decision to beam the pilot in backwards.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
This guy doesn't know how transporters work. Beams in backwards. They walk through the hallway. Christopher sees a female crewman walk by. He says, a woman? And Kirk says, a crewman.
I was gonna say it just kind of shocked me that he was like a woman, like women aren't supposed to be places.
And back then, women weren't in the military like that.
I guess he already did say it was a military vessel, didn't he?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that'd make more sense.
They walk onto the turbo lift. Christopher says, must have taken a lot to build a ship like this. Kirk says there are only 12 in the fleet. Christopher starts to ask, did the Navy? Kirk says, we're a combined service, Captain. Our authority is the United Earth Space Probe Agency. United Earth? Then Kirk just comes right out and says, we're from the future. We ran into a time warp. It was an accident. Christopher says, you seem to have a lot of accidents.
Okay, here is my problem with the whole shebang. United Earth Federation, or what was it called?
United Earth Space Probe Agency.
United Earth Space Probe Agency.
Yes.
The what? The what?
It's a thing. It's been mentioned in an episode or two before this one. Like, I remember it. Honestly, might have been Charlie X, which was written by the same person. In Enterprise, they reference it. They, put, the United Earth Space Probe Agency, logo, on, crates and stuff like that.
But, so they decided not to be the Federation this time. Or Starfleet.
I mean, no, they're still Starfleet, because they even say Starfleet Control earlier and later in the episode, but, it's just, another thing. Think about it as, here's how I'm going to choose to think about it right now, and I'm making it up on the spot. I'm going to say that Starfleet is the Navy, and, the United Earth Space Probe Agency is the American military. I'm going to say that Starfleet is a division of this other thing.
And that's why you have the Makos also.
Yeah. Because that was before it all just, got combined into just one Starfleet.
Okay, I gotcha.
Okay. They step off the turbo lift onto the bridge, Christopher saying, I never have believed in little green men, and Spock says, neither have I. Which I'd like to point out, like, they've met green people before. Spock should believe in little green men, like, there's gotta be a short Orion out there somewhere.
and I mean, the Telosians kind of fit the Martian.
Yeah, but they're not green.
They're not green, but they look like Martians, like the way they would
Well, yeah, they look
depict
like the old
Martians.
stereotype.
Yeah.
Kirk introduces Christopher to Lieutenant Commander Spock, then tells Christopher he can look around but don't touch anything. Spock gives Kirk an update on the ship, and Kirk asks if he's got anything else on his mind. Spock says they can't return the captain to Earth, he knows too much. Suppose an unscrupulous man were to gain certain knowledge of man's future. Such a man could manipulate key industries, stocks, and even nations, and in so doing change what must be, and if it is changed, Captain, you and I and all that we know might not even exist. Kirk says Spock's logic can be annoying, then tells him to have the quartermaster get the captain something else to wear, and then we get this moment of Spock and Christopher locking eyes while Christopher has a hand on his ear, which was a fun moment. This episode does good on the comedy beats.
It does. She should have wrote some comedy shows.
I mean, she might have. Like, I doubt Star Trek's the only thing she ever wrote. Cut to Kirk's quarters, Spock and Christopher enter while Kirk's recording his log.
Captain's log supplemental. Engineering Officer Scott informs warp engines damaged, but can be made operational and re-energized.
Computed and recorded, dear.
Computer, you will not address me in that manner. Compute.
Computed, dear.
Okay. I have, before we get to the computer issue, because I forgot about that, and I just remembered. Okay, the captain, not Kirk, the other captain.
Yeah.
They put him in some regular clothes, their clothes. It makes sense that they just had Starfleet uniforms because they didn't have people on
Yeah.
their ship, right? Why is that man wearing lieutenant rank?
I was gonna bring this up later, but like, yeah, like they should have just gave him like one with no stripes on it.
Yeah,
Like, why
but
give him lieutenant stripes? If you're gonna honor his naval rank, go full captain. Give him a captain's shirt. Like, it
yeah,
doesn't make
yeah.
sense. It's probably because like behind the scenes, like that's the shirt they had lying around that fit him. Like, it has lieutenant stripes on it. Just throw it on him. No one's gonna care. They didn't know that in
Mm.
like 60 years, couple dorks would be talking about it on a podcast.
Now, back to the computer. Like, like whenever this first, like, whenever I was watching this, and it was like, yes, I was like, what, what? Like,
I'm telling you,
the
this episode had
computer,
good comedy beats.
the computer's never done this before.
And we'll never do it again.
But that just threw me so far. I
Yeah.
was like,
It was a fun recurring gag throughout the episode, and it gave Majel Barrett something to do, so.
and I mean, it was good. Like it was it was something instead of just the entire show being about that one deal with the whole captain and all that whole stuff. You
Yeah.
had the computer being very not computery. Like DC Fontana was way ahead of her time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kirk's like, Spock, I thought I told you to fix this. Spock says it'll take a minimum of 3 weeks out of Starbase. Kirk says, I wouldn't mind it so much if it didn't get so affectionate. Spock says, it also has an unfortunate tendency to giggle. And Christopher asks, I take it that a lady computer is not routine. Spock says they got repairs on Signet 14, a society dominated by women who thought our computer needed a more personality.
Uh, that's hilarious.
Christopher starts to say, well, I'd love to stay, but... And Kirk cuts him off. Well, you have to. We can't send you back. You know about the future. You could change it, possibly destroy it. Christopher points out that his disappearance would change history too, and Spock says that he looked Captain Christopher up and he has no relevant contribution to history. Christopher goes on about his duty to report what he's seen, and his wife and his children, but all Kirk can say is he's sorry. Kirk gets a call from Scotty saying everything's rigged up, they should be re-energized in 4 hours, but they have nowhere to go in this time. And Christopher says that they're just as trapped in time as he is, and that is the end of Act 1.
Pretty funny Act 1, if I might say.
This is a good episode. They did good drama, good comedy, all good. We picked a good episode to name ourselves after.
Like, honestly, last episode I was like, this is the worst episode. Like, I couldn't
Last
even
episode
watch it.
was really bad.
It was so hard for me to even get through the episode. This one, I was like, I was gonna watch the next episode, and I was like, I better not.
Yeah, this is a good one. I'm glad we named ourselves after it. When really I just named it because like it sounded like cool and reflective.
If I remember, you sent me like 15 names, and then we picked for out of like 3 of them, and then our wives were like, "That's a cool name."
Yeah, so honestly, like a year before we started doing this, we talked about doing this, and like I already had like this name picked out. Tomorrow is yesterday, and so I figured, well, I'm not just gonna name it that. Like I'm gonna get David's opinion. So we kind of sent each other back and forth ideas for names, and this was one of them that I sent. And I was like, I like Tomorrow is Yesterday, and you were like, I like this other thing. And so we both asked our wives to break the tie, and they both said Tomorrow is Yesterday, and I was like, yes, I win. But yeah, then after we started, I came up with that with the Corporate Maneuvers, and I was like, oh man, that would have been a really good name. But we've already got Tomorrow is Yesterday.
Yeah, but that's a terrible episode.
Okay,
Not
that's a really good episode.
Not a terrible
That is a
episode.
really good episode. The only bad thing about the episode is it has Bailey in it.
Yeah, yeah. And then I wouldn't be able to do the Bailey scale, or the Bailey scale would
Exactly.
make more sense if we were the Corporate Night Maneuver.
All right.
Captain's log, stardate 3113.7. Our engines are being repaired, but we are still locked in time. And we have aboard a passenger whom we do not want, and we cannot return.
Recommendation for his disposition, dear.
Maintenance note. My recording computer has a serious malfunction. Recommended either be corrected or scrapped. Compute.
Computed.
It still just cracks me up.
Having to listen to me like imitate that voice has got to be make it a little bit funnier.
You never watched Futurama, did you?
No, not really. Like I
they
think I
have
saw the episode where Fry becomes his own grandpa, but like that's it.
that's a decent episode, but they have an episode where they go to a planet that's dominated by women, and they have a woman computer that controls it all, and she's kind of like that.
Uh, Kirk's in his quarters. Spock calls saying he's got some important information on Christopher. Kirk calls Christopher, gets no answer, then orders security to the transporter room to stop him from escaping. We see a red shirt walking in the hall outside the transporter room. Christopher knocks him out and takes his phaser. He walks into the transporter room and holds the technician at phaser point. Then Kirk walks behind him, disarms him, knocks him out pretty easily. Now let's take a moment to acknowledge this red shirt that gets knocked out. So this guy's actually been on a lot of the episodes we've covered. He's worn gold, blue, red, and even green. He's been in the Corbomite Maneuver, Mud's Women, The Enemy Within, The Man Trap, where it's established that his character's name is Bobby, The Naked Time, Charlie X, Balance of Terror, What Are Little Girls Made Of, The Conscience of the King, The Menagerie Part 1, and after this episode he'll be in Space Seed, Operation Annihilate, and Assignment Earth. And the weird thing is, no one knows this guy's name. He's just listed as unknown actor everywhere I looked.
He's the white bunny, right? The white
No.
rabbit.
Although I think that guy is in this episode. I didn't notice him, but like when I looked at like the credits, he was there.
So off off recording, we talked about this poster that I got, and it has like a lot of Star Trek. Like it's Star Trek, and it has like all the characters and stuff. And on here is the part that you couldn't see, but right there look, is the White Rabbit from
Nice.
the Shore Leave episode.
But yeah, it's crazy that there's just like this actor who was in so much of Star Trek that like no one like got his name and was never credited. So we need to like track down like Shatner and Takei and be like, who is this man? What was his name?
Do you really think they would know?
I think Takei might. Like, he chased the dude down with a sword once. Like, you should remember his name.
Maybe.
Shatner wouldn't be surprised if he didn't know.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Shatner even knew what Takei's name was.
I mean, he does because they had like a feud going on for several years. Actually, might still be going on. Like, those two guys can't stand each other.
Oh,
Ever wonder why Sulu got promoted to captain and given his own ship? So they wouldn't have to work together.
I haven't watched those movies in a long time.
Oh, we'll get there.
Eventually.
Cut to sick bay. Bones is telling Kirk that he'll be alright. Kirk says he can't blame him for trying to escape, but he can't let him go with what he knows. Bones is asking, what if we can't get
Back to the future!
we just wait for the supplies to run out, power to die, and they can't go to Earth? It'd be worse than sending the captain back. Kirk asks, what if we do go?
Back to the future!
I was gonna say we need to find the flux capacitor.
Get to 98 miles an hour.
88. Come on now.
Yeah, you're right, 88. Don't know why
Well,
I
that
said
wouldn't be
98.
that wouldn't be hard for the Enterprise.
Alright, what was Kirk saying? Kirk was saying, Christopher's the same age as us, but he'd be useless in our society. Bones asks if he could be re-educated. Kirk says he sounds like Spock.
If you're gonna get nasty, I'm gonna leave.
Ooh, nasty.
Kirk goes on asking if he could be retrained to forget his family. Christopher answers that with a big fat no. Kirk asks if he's okay, and Christopher says, I see you still have physical training in the future. Spock comes in saying, crude methods, but effective. McCoy has to tell Christopher that that was a joke. Spock says he made a mistake, and McCoy says, we've made history. Spock then says that they have to return the captain. Christopher, confused, asks why. Turns out Spock forgot to check to see if his descendants had any importance on history. Apparently, Colonel Sean Jeffrey Christopher will be the first man to go to Saturn. Christopher's like, but I don't have a son. McCoy says, well, not yet. Then Christopher gets this goofy I'm gonna be a dad grin on his face. A grin I'm sure our wives are very familiar with.
Not me. I never had a goofy grin.
Sure you didn't.
Nope, never.
I'd like to say, like, come on, Spock, like, you gotta check the descendants. Like, that's like time travel 101. I get that you haven't done this before, but, like, come on.
Done it before.
Okay, 3 days barely counts.
Which they were still 3 days behind, right?
No, they'd be 3 days ahead.
Well, they were still 3 days ahead. So will this reset them back to their original time period?
No, stop it. Cut to the briefing room with Kirk, Christopher, and Spock. Spock, acknowledging that we must return Captain Christopher, there are several problems, prime of which is the explanation of his return. We tracked his plane wreckage down after our tractor beam crushed it. It crashed in an open section of southern Nebraska. Kirk, that means those search parties will be crawling all over that wreckage. Spock, and Captain Christopher himself complicated the matter. Christopher, when I made visual contact, I turned on my wing cameras. I got close enough to take some pretty clear pictures of you. Air Defense Command will be processing that film fast. An ADC control was probably recording my radio transmissions. Kirk, If I remember my history, these things were being dismissed as weather balloons, sundogs, explainable things, at least publicly. Spock, Captain, our tractor beam caught and crushed an Air Force plane. It'll be impossible to explain this as anything other than a genuine UFO. Possibly alien, definitely destructive. Kirk. What about our problem, Mr. Spock? Any ideas on how to get back to our own time? Spock. A theory. A reverse application of what happened to us. Logically, it could work. Also, logically, there are 100 variables, any one of which could put us in a worse position than we are in now. Kirk, we're going to have to get back those reports and photos. If the captain feels duty-bound to report what he saw, there won't be any evidence to support him, Christopher. That makes me out to be either a liar or a fool, Kirk. Perhaps. Spock. Not at all. You'll simply be one of the thousands who thought they saw a UFO. Christopher says he's been stationed on that base and would like to be on the mission. Kirk says no, so Christopher offers to draw a layout of the base for them. Kirk and Sulu beam into a hallway on the Air Force base. They find the room they need and break in with a doohickey. Kirk says, primitive computer. I've seen them demonstrated in museums. They start taking I don't know what they're called. They look like old film canisters. What's crazy is when they made this, that primitive computer was just a normal computer. Now, if you or I wanted to see one of them, we'd have to go to a museum like Kirk. In the transporter room, McCoy is complaining about them taking too long.
It is a fact, Doctor, that prowling by stealth is more time-consuming than a direct approach. In our case,
Shouldn't you be working on your time warp calculations, Mr. Spock?
I am.
That was a good line. Like working on his calculations while arguing with McCoy.
That's just a smug, arrogant guy.
Back on the base, Kirk and Sulu are caught by a sergeant, gun drawn. He has them hand over their belts as well as what they've taken. Back in the transporter room, McCoy's still complaining, and Spock orders to open a channel. On the base, the sergeant asks what the beeping noise is. Kirk and Sulu play dumb. The sergeant opens the communicator. In the transporter room, they get one emergency signal, and Spock orders to beam them up. They beam up the sergeant sideways.
Kirk's Enterprise.
Spock here. Are you all right, Captain?
Yes, I'm all right, but as you can see, we have another problem.
And that is the end of Act 2. Just beaming up the whole Navy.
I like how the sergeant just kind of just stays there.
Yeah, he just stays perfectly still, too scared to move.
Yeah.
Captain's log. Stardate 3113.9. First Officer Spock recording. Due to an unfortunate accident, we have taken aboard another unwanted passenger.
Kirk tells Spock to keep him in the transporter room. McCoy takes his gun and his communicator, and Spock says, that should be fine, because he's, perfectly still not moving. Just what is this? Kirk and Sulu take all the tapes. That's what they're called, tapes. They sneak their way into the photo lab and go into the dark room. We cut to a guard room and see that Kirk and Sulu tripped a silent alarm. Back in the photo room, Kirk tells Sulu to signal Spock and goes into the photo lab. A colonel and two guards walk in. Kirk closes the door and attacks the guard, making sure to make as much noise as possible, so Sulu hears and knows to beam up. The fight ends. They have Kirk. The colonel sees an empty dark room. Alright, where's the other one? What other one? Your partner. I saw you looking that way and I saw somebody move in there. No, just me. Besides, could anyone get out of here without you seeing them? No, nobody should have been able to. You got anything?
Earlier, when they were walking down the hallway, Sulu was just a grinning from ear to ear.
Well, yeah, I think it's fair to say Sulu is a history nerd. Like how he has that gun collection and had that gun. Yeah, I think Sulu is a history nerd. And he was looking at this historic building they both pointed and looked at the corkboard with all the papers on it. I was like, oh hey, history. We don't use this anymore.
Yeah.
Sulu and that guy with the glasses from Discovery would get along. They're both history nerds.
The guy with the glass. Oh, yeah, yeah.
I was about
Section
to say we
31.
just reviewed this for Patreon.
The Section 31 guy.
All right, we're in the briefing room with Spock, McCoy, and Sulu, going through the stuff they stole. Scotty calls Spock to tell him the warp engines are ready to go. Spock says to turn them on, we'll need all our power to test our theory. Then goes back to looking at photos. Blast your theories and observations, Mr. Spock. What about Jim? He's down there alone, probably under arrest. He doesn't have a communicator, and we can't locate him or beam him back without one. I am aware of that, Doctor. Spock calls Christopher to the briefing room. Cut to the guard room where Kirk's being interrogated by Colonel Fellini. Now look, mister, you and I had better start communicating. I want to know how you got in here. That's a simple question. Give me a simple answer. Nobody saw you. You got all the way inside without tripping any alarm. How did you do it? Believe me, Colonel. You wouldn't believe me. Don't try to be funny. How did you get in? I popped in out of thin air. You seem to think this is some kind of game. No, Colonel. I know it's no game. Alright, what did you say your name was? For the fourth time, my name is James T. Kirk. And how did you get inside a top security installation, James T. Kirk? I told you wouldn't believe me. The Colonel picks up the phaser. Colonel, would you mind being careful with that? That worries you a little bit, huh? What is that? A radio? A transmitter of some kind? Of some kind. You can be more specific than that, Kirk. I don't want like mysteries. If you don't stop being careless with that, you'll have one. A big one. I'll have it disassembled, examined. We're not dummies, mister. We know how to find out things we want to know. He just casually tosses the other guard the phaser. What is that? A uniform of some kind? This little thing? Just something I slipped on. Kirk, maybe you don't realize how serious this is. Sabotage of a government installation. Did I sabotage something? No, we stopped you in time. But what would you have done if we hadn't found you? Believe me, Colonel, nothing at all. Is that what you're here for? Nothing at all? That's what would have happened if you hadn't interfered. Alright, Kirk, maybe this will make you laugh. Sabotage, espionage, authorized entry, burglary. How are those for starters? And I can think of lots more if you don't start talking. Alright, Colonel, the truth is I'm a little green man from Alpha Centauri. A beautiful place, you ought to see it.
I am going to lock you up for 200 years.
That ought to be just about right.
So I did the math. 200 years would be the 2160s, and that's Archer's time. Really, he needs to lock him up for 300 years.
Yeah, but I mean, probably by Archer's time, they probably would have unlocked him. Be like, yeah, yeah. You want to be a crewman on the Enterprise? And then you get, it's been a long road, and it's Kirk being captain instead of Archer.
Cut to the briefing room with Christopher, Spock, McCoy, and Sulu. Spock asks Christopher for the coordinates where they're holding Kirk. Christopher says he'll only give them if he can go. Spock says no. McCoy says something could go wrong. Christopher points out something that's already gone wrong, so Spock tells Sulu that the three of them will beam down. Sulu asks about phasers. Spock says just for the two of us, and Christopher says, "You don't trust me, Spock." In fact, I do, but only to a certain point.
I mean, would you trust him?
No.
Especially not with the phaser.
Cut to the transporter room. Spock, Sulu, and Christopher beam down, and the transporter chief replicates the search as some soup.
Can I say,
Yeah.
unlike every other Star Trek known to man, why don't they just wear freaking time period clothing? Like, why are they going down in their Starfleet uniforms?
I mean, you're right.
Like, I mean, like if I was to sneak into a building, I probably would try to wear a uniform.
Yeah, or like when you're visiting a pre-warp civilization, they still just wear their uniforms.
Yeah, yeah. Uh,
I like how in the scene Spock has to tell Christopher where to stand on the transporter. Like he stands in the wrong space, then like Spock has to like grab his arm and like point to the disc part.
uh, oh, I just remembered.
Yeah.
Going back to the very beginning when we were talking about intros, when about other Star Treks that started not like they usually do. You remember the episode of Next Generation where it starts where Riker's looks like an alien and he's going on an operating table and they're like
Yeah.
that was It just come to my mind.
Okay.
Sorry, I have
No, you're
ADHD.
good. On the base, Christopher distracts the guard so Sulu can give him a chop to the neck. They enter the guard room. Spock neck pitches the guard, while Kirk disarms and knocks out the colonel. Spock goes into Fellini's office. Christopher says, they know you were here. Kirk says all they have is a mystery with no answers, and is about to order a beam up when Christopher pulls a gun on them. And that is the end of Act 3. We pick up right where we left off. Kirk's trying to talk him down. Christopher says he's staying. He tells Spock to come out of the office, but Spock pops up behind him and gives him a neck pinch. I suspected he might not wish to return with us.
So, did the office get to the hallway or what?
No, I think Spock had himself beamed to outside of the room so he could sneak up on Christopher.
I gotcha. Because I was like, wait, that is not the room that he just went into.
Yeah.
I forget beaming exists sometimes.
All right.
Captain's log, stardate 3114.1. We must make an attempt to break free of this time, or we and our reluctant passengers will remain its prisoners. All we have is a theory and a few facts.
We're in the briefing room with Kirk, Christopher, Spock, and Scotty. Spock and Scotty theorize that if they slingshot around the sun, it'll throw them back to the future. Christopher asks what about him and the sergeant. Spock says before we're thrown forward, we'll go backward and we'll beam you down before anything happen. Kirk says then you'll have nothing to report because it didn't happen. Scotty says the problems are A, we could overshoot our time, and B, we could tear the ship apart. On the bridge, we see Earth on the view screen. Christopher says he always wanted to see space. He was rejected from the space program. Kirk says to look around, you beat them all. They slingshot around the sun. Time's moving backwards. Kirk tells Christopher to flight suit up and get to the transporter. They break away from the sun and everyone's being thrown around. They beam the captain down. He's back in his jet, but the Enterprise isn't there. They beam the sergeant down. He's walking the halls, goes to check on the records room, but Kirk and Sulu aren't there. They're flying through time now. Once they get close, Kirk orders Scotty to brake. He does. The ship's giving it all she's got, Captain. Everyone's being thrown around. Once stopped, they're getting hails from Starfleet Control.
Starfleet Control. This is the Enterprise. Captain Kirk speaking.
Record ship arrival, dear.
Enterprise, this is Starfleet Control. Come in, please.
Starfleet Control. Repeating message. The Enterprise is home. Kirk out.
And that is the end of our episode.
So, the funny thing is, half this episode didn't actually even need to exist.
What do you mean?
Like the whole sneaking on the base and stealing the tapes and all that didn't need to exist once they figured out that they're just going to drop those guys off and restart the whole future.
They didn't know it was going to work.
I
For
know,
all they knew,
but,
they were just going to run right into the sun. So they had to cover themselves and make sure they destroyed all the evidence.
but I mean, it's ironic. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now it's time for Uniform Corner, where I talk about uniform inconsistencies. Kirk introduces Spock as Lieutenant Commander, even though Spock wears Commander stripes, and I promise that is the last time I will bring it up.
I was going to say, this is not the first time you brought that up.
Alright, the second one we've talked about already with Christopher wearing Lieutenant stripes. And lastly, Roger Perry liked his Starfleet uniform so much he asked DeForest Kelly if he could take the shirt home. Kelly said, well, they frown upon that, but you could possibly just stick it in your bag and nobody's going to say anything. Perry decided not to do that, but after seeing the eventual success and legacy of Star Trek, he regretted not taking the shirt.
Yeah.
Final thoughts?
You know, I love this episode.
Yeah, it was really good.
So I'm going to go ahead and do my Bailey scale.
Okay.
1 Bailey being the best, 10 Baileys being the worst. What do you think I'm going to rank it at?
You're going to say 1 or 2?
You think so?
Yes.
All right. So, for the first time ever, I'm going to rank this, and it's not just because it's our namesake. This is going to be a 1 Bailey.
We did it. We made David like an episode.
Which is, and it's our namesake episode. Like, I honestly was gonna rank it a 2 Bailey coming into this, a 2 or a 3. But the only reason I was going to was because of the lieutenant stripe, you know, inconsistency and the Federation inconsistency. But you you brought up the point about the United Earth, whatever, which made sense. And then you were talking about how he has the military background, so they might have given him a little bit of that for, whatever.
Okay.
So I took those out of my, and yeah, 1 Bailey.
Nice. All right. Join us next week for the return of the Archons. You can find me ever at Couch Talks Movies. David, tell the people where they can find you.
You can find me on Instagram at the underscore actual underscore David underscore Moss. And you can find me on TikTok at Commodore Moss.
You can find the show at Tomorrow Trek Pod on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and at patreon.com/tomorrowisyesterday. And don't forget to check out our stuff on the Couch Podcast Network store at couchtheaters.com. It's a long story. And until next time,
Live long and don't go back in time.